Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Saturday Morning Comic Review. I'm your host, Dylan Wallace. Today, we got a great issue for you guys. It's going to be a standard Saturday, so we got 10 issues to review for you. But, of course, we have the polls for this week, the polls for next week, and then where things kind of rank and stack as far as the comics of the week as well. So let's just go ahead and jump right into it, shall we? So, first thing we got going, of course, is going to be our polls. But before we do that, I like starting off with the picks of the week. So, of course, I use League of Comic Geeks, as many of us do. And for this week, actually a super close race, as you can see up on the screen here. So we have Superman, the Kryptonite Spectrum #1. Only 17% of the vote, which is one of the lowest that I've seen. So very close kind of across the board. I do have that one. I did want to save that for the Omega. I had 8 books in total that were like current, and so I decided, okay, we'll do 4 for this issue and then 4 for the Omega. And so I have Kryptonite Spectrum reserved for the Omega. But then the next book we have is, or #2 for picks of the week, is Transformers #23, which I have, and I read it and we will review it. Then it's Batman Dark Patterns, Fantastic Four #2. If that was in the shop, I was going to grab it, but by the time I got there on Thursday, they were already sold out of it. And then the Ultimates #15, which I have read it and we will review it. So on this list, I have 3 of them, and I've read and review, and we will be reviewing 2 of them on this episode today. So with that, let's go ahead and now switch it over to the polls for this week. I think everything here is what I mentioned on the previous Saturday issue as well. So we have 10 books listed here. Again, 8 are current and then 2 are backlogs, and since it's kind of like half and half, I'll just call it out as I say each title for the audio folks. So we have Bug Wars #6, which we read and we will review today. Green Lantern Corp #7, read and we will review. Miles Morales Spider-Man #36 is a backlog. New Champions #8 is going to be for the Omega. The Power Fantasy #11 is going to be for the Omega. Superman, the Kryptonite Spectrum, I already told you guys, is the Omega. Transformers, Reddit will review it. Ultimate Spider-Man Incursion #3, that will be for the Omega. The Ultimates, like I said, Reddit, and we will review it. And then last but not least is X-Men #20, that will be a backlog. So those are the 10 books. Pretty good bunch here. A nice kind of array of different books. You have an Ultimate in there. You actually don't have an Absolute in there this time, but with the black label of Superman, I think that'll be good, and then some Image books as well. So yeah, it's a nice little week we got going there. So let's go ahead and jump right into it for the reviews then for this week. So as I mentioned before, 10 books as always. You can see them up on the screen now. I'll just go ahead and call these out, and I mention it each episode, so I'll just mention it up at the top. For these reviews, I do spoil the heck out of them, so just keep that in mind. If you don't want spoilers, this is just not going to be the show for you, but I'll try to catch you up on the story, where we're at thus far. We'll review this book, give it the ranking, I'll tell you what's on League as well, and then whether or not this is a good jump on point for you, and then we'll just do that for all 10 books. So in this order, we have the Ultimates #15, we have Green Lantern Corp #7, we have Bug Wars #6, Transformers #23, and then begins the backlog. So I'm at Batman Hush now. So this is Batman 158. This is the beginning of Hush. Then Miles Morales Spider-Man #23, Magik #3, Phoenix #9, the Uncanny X-Men #12, and then we're continuing to work through the trade of Local Man. This is volume 2, and today's show we will be reviewing issue #6. So those will be the 10 books, again, in that order, so you know. And if you want to bounce around on the podcast, totally understand. Obviously for the video, I was able to put in the time stamps for you guys there. So we'll start off here with the Ultimates #15. And for this book, I gave it a 4. Lee gave it a 3.9, so right on par there. And as you can see from the title here, this is the origin story, or the focus is anyways, on Shang-Chi. And for this universe, he's called something slightly different. Let me go and pull it up here. He's called Shang-Chi instead. And rather than, the 10 rings, the position that he has here and the way that they describe it in probably the first third of the book is a whole origin and legend of Shang-Chi. And basically he was this demigod, Thor-esque, but more of like in kind of a feudal Japan type of setting. We go around killing all these gods, and basically anyone that challenged him was ultimately defeated. So I had this crazy legend, went into this long hibernation, almost like the Avatar Last Airbender, and then came out with all these people praising him across different universes and so on and so forth, until he eventually was fighting some more demigods and champions across the universe, and he eventually lost, and he died. And so when he died, he did say in his last dying breath that he'd be coming back, which brings us now to the present story. So to catch you up on the Ultimates, if you aren't caught up at this far, we have what's called the Maker. He has stripped away all these superhero powers across the universe in this different universe than where he's actually from, but he's been locked away for 2 years. And so we have Iron Lad, who's actually Tony Stark, and then we have Doom, working together to try to spread out all the superpowers to the rightful people and who should have it. But we have different variants of superpowers, who they go to, their origin story, so on and so forth. And so here's just another one being added to the collection. So rather than the Avengers, it's called the Ultimates. And so they're going after this legend just to help bolster up the team, as we're only a couple of months away from the Maker making his arrival. And so that's the story that we're told. And as we're heading to where this new rumor is that there is a reincarnation, or that this child was born at about 10 years ago and all these strange, incredible things kept happening. Like an example was like he literally urinated in a field that hasn't grown anything for centuries, and suddenly it started to grow. Like literally that's something that they described that happened and took place. So with all that being said, they're trying to investigate it. And so when they get to the place where they're investigating, they realized that they were beaten to actually arriving there, and Hulk, who is one of the villains and like the main villain that the Ultimates have been going after, has sent one of his champions to also investigate as well. And sure enough, that boy is there, and so they protect the boy as best as they can, and he's very like kind of Buddhist monk, like not attacking or anything, and so they're able to save and protect him. And then the fight is on then between mostly She-Hulk, but a little bit of Iron Lad as well. It looks like this guy gets the upper hand at first, but in the end it is She-Hulk who gains the advantage, and at the end of the book literally rips his head off, and then we get basically at the end there that the Maker is only 3 months away from returning. So action-packed towards the back half of the book, setting up the legend of Shang-Chi and all the incredible things that hopefully he'll do, but he is only a 10-year-old boy, as you can see on cover A here. So overall, I mean, the book, I think it was really just a setup for adding an additional character to this cast, but not like the same oomph and punch as I have been seeing from the Ultimates. Is it the time to jump in? I would say no at this point. You probably want to go back a couple of issues, because you're not going to understand the full dynamic. When they mention the Hulk and everything that's kind of happened with him, I don't think that makes much sense either. And this is kind of like just a one-off, so I don't think that would make much sense. So let's go ahead and flip through the artwork so you can take a look at that for the folks on YouTube. And this is basically just showing here the beginning, the legend of Shang-Chi, and everything that he has fought through, and all the different gods, and the different battles that he took place. I think it literally got to the point where it said the sun was afraid and the moon was afraid of all the battles that would take place. They were that epic. And so here they are actually checking out the legend, and of course here is where they come and run into one of Hulk's warriors, and then they start fighting. It gets to a point where Iron Lad starts to send off these gamma missiles. At first, he blocks himself with She-Hulk, but she's able to kind of fend it off, and then She-Hulk then gains the advantage towards the very end. And then we have kind of that last one-on-one scene, and Iron Lad's able to actually hit him with some gamma bolts, and then boom, with the head being cut off at the end there, which is kind of crazy. So only, 3 months remaining for this one. So, yeah, the Ultimates, I mean, overall, Again, I gave it a 4. Lee gave it a 3.9. I'm just really excited to get to the point of where we introduce the maker. So we're so close, yet so far, still a couple of months to go out, and then still tying up some loose ends on some other things, and I'm sure the other Ultimates from Black Panther to X-Men, they're going to want to start to get those to start tying together as well. So that's the Ultimates number 15. Again, I gave it a 4. Lee gave it a 3.9. Then next up here we have is Green Lantern Corp issue number 7. And so this one, I gave it a 3.5. Lee gave it a 3.6. Not the best book, unfortunately. Anything that's around a 3.5. I started thinking about this. For these books that are 3.5, it's like, okay, the particular issue, I'm never going to really recommend that. But maybe the series is really good, and this is like a book that has like a so-so, it's a filler, it's a setup, whatever it is. It has to tie into the event that Marvel or DC is doing at the time. But maybe the series is really good and the series is worth checking out. But then there are other instances where it's a 3.5 and the book itself is like actually not good at all, and maybe this is the one book that's actually punching above its weight class. So there's that possibility as well. And then there also could be instances where it's a 3.5 and like just flat out just wouldn't recommend, even like if it's like a one shot, has nothing to do with the series, it's just the issue. So very rarely would I imagine that I'm recommending it, other than the series is good but the issue itself actually suffered. More times than not, it would be like, okay, you can probably skip this. And then a 4 is going to be, depends on where we are in the story, and then a 4.5 would be like worth definitely jumping into. But there's a caveat to a 4 or 5 of like, maybe you're going to need some of the context for a lot of these things that made this particular issue special, versus if you're just jumping into it like completely, unaware of what's actually going on. So as I'm thinking about these scores and what they actually mean, sometimes it's good to just put words to that rather than like, oh yeah, you see the score, about where the bell curve of Dellen is. 4 is like just boom, standard average, did the job, worth the money, I would say. 4.5 punched above the weight class, 3.5 punched below, 3 is and below. I rarely give anything below 3. I don't even think I maybe have. So 3 just means like bad. And then anything below that, I think there's like something fundamentally wrong with the book. Like the book was damaged or something, or the art wasn't finished, or things are like in black and white. That's when it starts getting below that, which doesn't really happen. And then 5, I think I've only given 5 5s. Maybe 4 since I started, so extraordinarily rare, and I want to keep it that way intentionally. Like if I come at the end of this full 12 months of doing a review and I have less than 7 5s, I think I did it correctly in my mind. So it's super, super rare for that to happen. But anyways, diverted for a while. Let's get back to the book. Green Lantern Corp, number 7. To catch you up on the story here, we have the Green Lantern Corp is basically a police force, and a lot of this has just been, kind of Monster of the Week. But we've been building to this guy Stormbreaker and his group are basically trying to destroy different planets. They're at the point where they can enact their evil plan. And the way that they do it is they siphoned out all the emotion across the universe. So nobody has like emotional intelligence anymore. They just only operate on logic. But the entities that still do are actually synthetic or AI entities that have like emotion built into their code. So all organics that have emotion do not feel emotion, but synthetics, they do. So now it's reliant on the synthetics of like, okay, these worlds are getting destroyed, but the logical people don't care because they're like, well, my place isn't getting destroyed, so why would I care if any of these other places are getting destroyed? And so now they basically have to use logic against all these organics. They're able to round them all up and use a convincing and winning argument as to why, and compel people that are heroes to actually do the thing, because they just are completely void of emotion. Positive, negative, left, right, center, it doesn't matter. There's just no emotion at all. And so they finally do convince them, and they realize they have to come up against this big wall. And I guess there's some emotion behind it, or it's like keeping emotion suppressed. There's something along those lines. So they get to the wall. They're nearly stopped by the Stormbreaker, but at the particular time, they're able to like shoot directly through the middle of the wall. And like they ordinarily wouldn't do this, but since they don't have emotion and thus they don't have fear, they're like, logically, this is what you should do, which is extraordinarily risky, but they do it, they go through, and then on the other side are these like celestial dragons that they're now meeting with, and that's the cliffhanger to lead us for the next one. So with all that being said, the whole rationale of like, it doesn't make any logical sense to save all these people, I think that's pretty flawed, and that makes it a little challenging in the first place. And then beyond that, just the way the story is constructed itself, some issues there with how confusing it is, and what's the objective and the goal of like stripping all these emotions out just to destroy, but like what's the point, or what are you trying to conquer, what end are they going for other than just complete destruction? And if it's complete destruction, does that make logical sense, whether there's emotion involved or not? So that's got to be explained a little bit too. So those would be the reasons this book suffered a little bit. But jumping into the artwork here, I think the artwork's actually really good for like kind of a standard DC. We get a lot of these like intergalactic. Oh, sorry, I kept saying Stormbreaker. It's Starbreaker. I think Stormbreaker is like Marvel, but I have like a comic artist series. So sorry, Starbreaker. But yeah, the artwork here is like probably a step above what your typical DC would be, with all these planets being destroyed. But here we have kind of these sentient AI synthetics that are then tasked with trying to round everyone up, convince them otherwise of, hey, we need to care. And so that's the challenge, right? Is if there's no emotion, then why care? And so basically, logically, it came to the point of, well, at some point they're going to eventually come for you, so we need to stop them now. And it's like, okay, that makes sense. But yeah, here's the wall. It's called the source wall, the edge of all reality as we know it. And that is where they need to pass through in order to get to the other side to potentially free the emotion spectrum. So that's where they go through, and they shoot through there, and that's how they get on the other side. And they meet with all these different dragons that I guess are the essence of each level of emotion. And then we'll get to that in the cliffhanger. And then this next page here is just a little preview for a Justice League Red that's going to take place. So yeah, again, 3.5 for me. League gave it a 3.6. This is for Green Lantern Corp number 7. Not really a good time to jump in. Overall, I'd say the book is actually pretty suffered too, and I'd say probably a skip at this point. Then we have Bug Wars number 6. Man, this book is incredible. So I gave this book a 4.5. League gave it a 4.7. What an incredible series. This is the end to Volume 1, Book number 6. So this is the conclusion here. Very obviously not the point to jump in whatsoever. But the way that this ended was very satisfying. Leaves plenty of open-ended into building this out in this universe. But the best way to describe this book is this is Mad Max, but in the world of bugs, in a lawn, in like some random rural county in Alabama. It's pretty incredible. So this small family, they move back to this town, into this home. Father's passed away. Find out that he did a lot of research around bugs, and in the lawn, basically all these bugs are like sentient beings, and the lawn is the wasteland, if you will, and there's all these different sects of bugs where the ants have like control of something, the spiders have control of something, the bees have control of something, the moths, like all of them have these just different territories within the lawn. So our protagonist, Slater, was pulled down into this universe. He had this little amulet that actually made him, I think it's the World Stomper or the Bug Stomper. And he has all these superpowers, but he's actually meant to like keep the balance and the force in all of this. And now at the end, his brother, who's terrified of these bugs and has been spraying them on like crazy, all the bugs have decided to revolt up and to attack him. Sydney is his name. And so that attack is about to take place. Our protagonist, Slater, is meeting up with all the spiders right now who have like these mystical powers and like can weave into the past, into history. So he's actually meeting up with his father, but it's like kind of a vision. He's not actually real. And understanding what is about to change about his life, and that he will be like kind of the World Stomper moving forward. And the amulet, he's having issues with the powers, come to realize that there's a chip in it, and so the power is always going to be a little bit unreliable. So but he accepts the challenge and goes out into the battle and just, decides to help in obviously trying to save his brother. So it shows a lot of different gruesome things of the brother just getting stung and bit and, poked and stabbed by all these different bugs. And Slade tries to help out as best as he can. Fortunately, his mother is in the house and they see him getting attacked along with some police officers, so they're able to help a little bit. Slade does end up using the amulet, which like sends out this huge blast, kills many of the bugs. One of the generals is like a head ant, and the spider companion that he's with was able to remove the antennas from the ant, and of course that's like how they kind of communicate. So like completely cut off from the hive, and all the worker ants don't know what to do. So really smart of like it actually weaves in like some, okay, here's like what a bug would actually need or do, and how do we make that work into this kind of crazy fantasy Mad Maxy type of world. And so in the end, Sydney is able to be saved. He's missing an eye, but he's saved. Slade is returned back to human form when he hasn't been able to, and it's been 6 days, I think they say, in total. He keeps getting information from the bugs out of what's happening in the lawn, but as of right now, it's like a time of peace. But he knows there's something out there, and in particular, there's something out in the woods even further than the lawn that is potentially going to be an issue further down the road. Excellent conclusion to everything that's happened here. And with all that being said, this is my comic of the week. We'll have to see with Superman, Kryptonite Spectrum. But this book was just really good. It was between this and Transformers, I'd say. 50-50 on those two. But I love the creativity behind this. I love the universe that we created. It's just Mad Max, but let's put bugs on top of it. The way it's written, the way it's drawn, it's incredible. So let's go ahead and jump into some of the artwork, shall we? So you can take a look at this. This is the first page. It is Sydney with a complete swarm of bugs eating him alive. It is like the worst nightmare anyone could possibly ever imagine if every single bug in your lawn just started attacking you all at once. Stinging, biting, crawling on you, and just, the thought of it is just insane. But then we have here Slater talking with his father, basically having the talk of like, do you want to take on the challenge? And he said, of course, absolutely. So we get more scenes of the battle and the fighting that's taking place. Sydney getting just like literally bugs inside of his mouth. It's just swarming that bad. And all the fighting that's happening with all the other mites is what they're called, but different types of bugs. Some are with the World Stomper, some are against him. And then there's like this lawnmower that's out there as well. So that starts going off and like killing some of the bugs too. Like I mentioned, the mom is out there to help drag the son out of there, but at this point, this is where they've won the battle, and then this huge final blast from the amulet is what is able to take out the rest of the bugs that were on Sydney and kind of saves him in the end. So basically, at this point, everyone's kind of saving their goodbyes. Slater is then turned back into human form, and then starts talking about what's to come next with the woods, and we'll just have to wait and see. So that's Bug Wars. And then the coolest thing about this is at the end you have like this little journal that if you wanted to learn more about it and everything. But for me, the coolest thing is that they are going to have some more Bug Wars that comes out later this year. I should say beginning of next year, January 2026. It's going to be a one-shot Bug Wars, the Spider Witch special. So I guess we're going to learn more about his companion, the Spider Witch, which will be dope. And then at the very end here, they confirm for 2026 Bug Wars book number 2, The Fellowship of the Effed Up, I guess is what it is. So we'll see what that is all about. So yeah, I am excited. This is awesome. Obviously, don't jump in, like I said. Just wait for the trade at this point. But what a series. What an interesting concept. So well written. It's like gory and bloody as all hell, but it's bugs. It's like crazy. So that's Bug Wars. I do highly recommend. It's definitely going to be on the short list for like one of the books of the year when I end up doing all that stuff. And it's just been a really excellent ride. So Bug Wars number 6. Again, I gave it a 4.5. Lee gave it a 4.7. Really tough to end some of these comics as well. A lot of time those endings will just fall flat, but they did an excellent job here overall, just setting up this universe. So then we get to the next book here, which is Transformers number 23. So this is close contention for Comic of the Week as well. So I gave this a 4.5 and Lee gave this one a 4.7. This is also a really excellent book. And we're basically coming up to like the final conflict of this volume or of this trade at this point. So we have the final big battle about to take place. The Decepticons are closing in on the Autobots in Chicago. And the big battle is about to take place. So Optimus Prime, he's down right now. He is basically journeying into the Hall of Primes and is trying to make his way back to Earth and to his consciousness and everything. All the Autobots are basically just getting ready. You have the whole rally cry. You have humans going up to Optimus saying thank you for saving them up through this point. The Decepticons, they've rallied and they're getting ready, and then you have the big fight and the big clash in the middle, and like this awesome full spread that shows both of them fighting each other. So of course I'll show off that. Then in the Hall of Primes, we see Sparky, and Sparky is Spike's father, who, like, I think it was issue 3 or 4, gets sucked into like this kind of time warp, or it's like a Cybertronian warp drive thing. So he gets sucked into that. Now Optimus sees him in the Hall of Primes, but for whatever reason, everything in the Hall of Primes is completely corrupted, and so Sparky is basically like, hey, you're not supposed to be here, and like you should be back on Earth. I'm going to see if I can send you back. And so you get this touching moment of all of them like kind of seeing between Optimus and Sparky. Sparky sees Spike. He sees his other family members. Optimus sees other Autobots as well. And then for whatever reason, like through the power of magic or love or something, who knows, right? Optimus basically comes back and he comes to. While all that's taking place, though, the Decepticons, Starscream in particular, jumps in front of the front lines and tries to get to Optimus. Megatron's all pissed at him because he's breaking file and, you know, breaking rank. But they get to the point and they see Optimus on the ground. And so Starscream goes immediately after him. Carly, who's another human out there, like tries to protect him, which is not much she can do. Starscream is shooting at her. Beachcomber gets in front. Beachcomber, his whole thing is like he's a pacifist, so he just sacrificed himself basically to save Carly. And then that's when Megatron like steps in. It's like, you idiot, like you're going after Prime. Prime's all for me. And that's when Prime actually gets up, and we have the two squaring off. And Megatron says to Starscream, it's going to be 1-on-1. And Prime's basically like, I'd have it no other way. And so that's the cliffhanger off of like these two are going to go at it. The big one-on-one battle, the main event between the two. All right. So this is, you know, obviously wrestling fan because I do the wrestling podcast as well. This is your main event of WrestleMania about to take place in the next issue, issue 24. Unless they do something of like, you know, sometimes you have those filler additional setup issues of like, oh, when these two were kids and they actually were friends, and you do that for a little bit and then you know, flash forward to the main big battle. But we're like right there, which is dope. So awesome book, highly recommend. Totally fine to jump in here if you've seen any Transformers whatsoever. You already know it's Megatron versus Optimus Prime, right? Autobots versus Decepticons, nothing's changed, nothing's different. So you just have that traditional sense all in one story here. You would be totally and completely fine just jumping in right here. You really don't need the other context or anything that's going on. It's just kind of the classic story, if you will, coming to a head at the climax of the kind of whole story, which is fine in Transformer sense. You know, there's nothing too deep that you're missing here. So let's go ahead and show off the artwork. So here is the fighting that's been taking place kind of all across the different cities. Prime in the Hall of Primes, and here's where everyone's kind of rallying, say their goodbyes and everything before we get the big old fight that's about to take place. And then look at that full spread. Autobots, Decepticons, incredible. And then the fighting just basically takes place here. So this is where we have Sparky. He's with Optimus saying like, hey, you're not really supposed to be here. I need to get you back. Here's what I was talking about before with Optimus, you know, talking with whoever. This is Sparky talking to his son Spike, and then Optimus talking with some of the Autobots that he's lost as well. And then he basically gets sent back. Here's where Starscream and Megatron are, and they see Optimus, and you know, that one-on-one. It's like, here we go. One shall fall. One shall stand. One shall fall. Incredible. So yeah, this is it. The big fight. It's incredible. It's a good book. Highly recommend. Transformers 23. I gave it a 4.5. League gave it a 4.7. Then we start into our backlog issues here. So this is Batman 158. So Batman Hush has a lot of cult following from the original run of Hush years and years and years ago. Mostly for the suit in particular, which if you're seeing the comic, you can see from the cover. So this is 158. If you look at this Hush suit, it's like considered one of the best suits of all time. You can see on the gadgets, it has kind of a lot of the classic elements that you think of Batman all started from like the Hush era. So that's a big piece of it. And then also people like Hush a lot, but this is my first getting into it, so I don't even know what really to expect based on this first issue. I mean, this was like just letting us know that Hush has arrived. That's basically the whole story here, but we'll see how it actually ends up. Now, this is in the past. This came out March 26th of this year, so all this I think is now done. Maybe the most recent issue is still Hush. I'm not entirely sure. It's like something like that. So I don't know either way like how the internet and the world is feeling about Hush thus far. I just really don't, which is nice because I just kind of go in blind and it's like, here's my own thoughts. And I think maybe another nice piece and what makes my content a little different than maybe someone else out there is I don't really watch anyone else and what they're doing. I have literally no idea what other content creators do in this space, which is probably really, really bad and detrimental. But at the same thing, it's like, okay, here's just like a moron coming in who reads the books and is just putting it out there and what his thoughts and opinions are. But I don't have the long context of like reading Hush as a child and now I'm reading it now, you know? I don't have the long context of like, I know what this means in particular. And also to that point, then I'm not like super jaded. I find that a lot actually on the wrestling side of things with like, okay, well, I know what X, Y, and Z was and what it meant. And then like, I have all these years and years of built up of watching it. And so when I'm watching something, you know, it's like, okay, it's new to someone, but to me, it's like, yeah, I've seen that a million times already, you know? All this stuff, for me on the comic side, is like all new, which is sweet. So anyways, let's just go into the book itself. So, new arc, obviously. It's Joker. He is doing some sort of prank where he is going into the dam or the reservoir, dropping a whole bunch of piranhas in there. It's going to flood it, and then it'll attack the city. Obviously evil. Batman's there to stop it. So he stops, but he falls into the river. And when he falls into the river, the piranhas start going after Batman. And like, you know how his cowl has like that failsafe. If you open it, then it's intended for a person. They'll get electrocuted. But a piranha bites it, and the whole water gets electrocuted. And obviously Batman gets electrocuted. So he's down and out. When that happens, then someone captures Joker and just starts torturing them, right? And it gets to the point where he's like starts like throwing, I think it was like X-Acto knife type things into Joker's like arteries, but just enough to like nick it, and then he starts like bleeding, but like won't bleed out. Insane, right? Like, you talk about torture, ridiculous. But anyways, Batman comes to, and when he does come to, he starts to investigate and put it all together as to what's actually happening. And so it leads him to go to an old carnival based on all these different clues that he put together. Sure enough, that is where Joker is, and that's where he sees him completely tied up. And then Batman puts two and two together that Hush has returned. It's literally the whole book. It's just that setup and the investigating. Not a bunch of text. It's actually a very, very quick and breezy read compared to some of the other Batman books have been up to this point. And it's just to let you know that we're going to start this new arc. So let's go ahead and go into the artwork. Artwork, I'd say here, is also a step up from your typical DC or Marvel as well. Who do we have on it for the art? Oh, it's Jim Lee. Well, that explains it. I didn't realize it was Jim Lee for this. So, obviously one of the GOATs. Even I know that. And that's probably another reason why people were super stoked about it, too, is just having Jim Lee on the art. But, yeah. So, the story itself, fine. We'll see where that all heads. But the artwork here is, for sure, excellent. Excellent, as you can see, just from the level of detail for one piece, but then also just some of the brutality too. Like, just look at this on the Batmobile. Jeez, wow! Like, just all like the grittings and the grating and the pitting on like the exhaust. Like, what? That is insane. And then here, Batman breaking through a whole bunch of glass and like how much it shatters as well. Damn, Jim, that's actually insane. And you can see his reflection here too. Jeez. Now I'm like looking back at this and I'm like, oh my gosh, this actually is like a whole nother level. So now it's great because I don't know if I've read a Jim Lee art book. I don't know if I have, but now I get it. I am seeing it and living it. Oh, and then at this point we have absolute Martian Manhunter too. Towards the end here, this is just a preview of it. So on the artwork, phenomenal, but on the story itself, not so much. So again, I gave it a 4. Lee gave it a 3.7. It's just a start here, so we'll see where it all heads from there. Next up here, continuing the backlogs, and it is backlogs for the rest of these. It is Miles Morales Spider-Man number 23. So for this one, Lee gave it a 4. I only gave it a 3.5. I thought for some reason that it was lacking something, is what I would say for this book. So we are at the end of Blood Hunt. Blood Hunt was the last issue in 22. So 23 is the first issue following Blood Hunt and everything that took place there. So this came out a while ago, literally a full year ago, August 14th, 2024. I'm recording this on the 15th. So almost a year to the day is when this came out. And at this point, Miles is still a vampire. So he's still a vampire, or has vampiric blood in him. But everything that Doctor Strange did to him has reduced his urges to, want to go and feed and suck blood and so on and so forth. But it hasn't fully and completely stopped cravings, right? So Miles decides to have a therapy session with Dr. Squash, who's like literally Sasquatch. And it's so funny because it's like the soap commercials basically. But he's a therapist and he's doing a whole bunch of research on Miles's blood. And it's like basically how your blood is interacting with you, and in particular your venom side, like your venom powers, is how any gamma would interact with their personality, right? So Bruce Banner and Hulk, how that's interacting is how Venom and now this vampiric blood that you have are interacting as well. So you're always going to have this push and pull, and then same sort of behaviors and mannerisms as well. And so Miles is just basically trying to work on that and try to fight it out, but he's dating Starling this whole time, right? So he wants to go and hang out with her so he can kind of ground himself a little bit. But Starling has not, I don't know if it's a secret, but she's got a history as well that her grandfather is actually Vulture. And so she is at home. Miles said he was going to come by. So she hears noise and thinks it's from upstairs. It's just Miles like swinging in. But like, she's like, no, Miles wanted to do that. And that's like uncharacteristic. So she thinks she's getting robbed, and she's not getting robbed. It's actually Vulture that's going to have her do some sort of bidding. And then that's the cliffhanger there. So setup issue for sure. We're coming out of Blood Hunt, trying to start this new arc, and that's what it's going to be. Starling's grandfather, and then Miles also dealing with these vampiric issues. So overall, decent issue. Not quite the best, I would say, and it's more of a character development issue overall. So here's Miles. He's fighting this kind of no-name bad guy, but then he starts to realize that, the vampiric power is still within him. Nice full spread that we have here with Miles shooting off this venom punch, but he could tell like he's not pulling his punches the way that he normally would, and like creating a lot of damage that ordinarily he wouldn't. So here's a therapy session with Dr. Squash, coming to the realization of everything that's actually happening, and Miles starting to realize of like, dude, I'm losing it a little bit. So let's go hang out with the homegirl. And then here's where Starling is, and she's like, oh, that's weird. What the hell could that be? And this is where, I didn't realize this was a full spread also, but it is, where Vulture has showed up, and he's going to want to do something nefarious for sure. So that's Miles Spider-Man number 23. Again, I gave it a 3.5. League gave it a 4. Then, and sorry if you hear thunder and lightning, it just started to rain here. We have Magik number 3. And so this one I gave a 3.5 as well. And then League ended up giving this one a 4. I thought it was a little confusing reading through this. And, sometimes what is really the best thing to do is like you'll read through one of these books and it's like, I don't know if I fully got that. If I have it in the backlog, I'll just read the recap of the next week and it'd be like, what did they intend to say here? And then try to match up what I actually read versus what the recap is. And sometimes I'm like, I don't know if that's actually what this book said, and I find myself in a similar place here. So with Magik, as you can tell from the cover, right, it's like heaven and hell, demonic thing, a little bit of edgelordy type cover as well too, but I mean that's kind of Magik as a character anyway, so that just kind of is what it is. But what we have here is Magik is sucked into the world of Liminal, and her whole thing is right now is she is trying to stop this demon Liminal from coming to Earth. And there are these different 5 seals. The first, I guess, kind of disciple, if you will, of Liminal has already broken the first seal, killed a whole bunch of mutants and people, and this grandmother in particular. And her whole thing was to be the warden of these seals. So now she's passed that duty along to her grandson, and Magik is helping him to also try to help. But after the last issue, going after the second seal, Liminal pulled down Magik into this realm. And so we start the issue. Magik's trying to run around, try to fight it, try to escape. She cannot. Finally confronts Liminal. And Liminal just has a conversation with her of like, we're the same people. We were both taken as children and used as part of some sort of ritual, as like some sort of sacrifice. Magik lived her whole life in limbo, and then Liminal, similar thing that happened to him as well. And so she's like, okay, well, like, what's your point? And he's like, I want to wager something with you. You have a dark side that's like half of her, and you can see from the cover here. I want that dark side to be free within you, so don't let it suppress it as much, and do that for, I think it's 2 weeks, without the dark side taking over you. And if that's the case, I will completely free the dark side from you, like has that power to do that. But if you don't, and the dark side does take over, then you need to be my right-hand person. So Magik just takes the bait because she's like, well, this is going to get me out of here, and then I can stop all the other seals, and I've been working on suppressing the dark side of me forever, so that really shouldn't be a problem. So she agrees and then is released. And that whole segment there, as I was actually reading it in the book, I was like, I don't think any of this actually said that. And then I read the recap. That's, I guess, what they were going for there. So big reason why I get to knock here. But Magik comes back to Earth, and she meets up with the grandson, who's now in Ecuador. And he was going after the third seal, which already fell. So in the span of like 6 days, they've already lost 3 seals at this point. And now, on top of that, the grandson has now met up with a different mutant, and that is Mirage. And I guess Magik and Mirage have some past as well that I'm not privy to. I'm not exactly sure what has happened, but she's like, oh crap, like, why is it Mirage? And maybe she can like sense something about the dark side within Magik. That's all taking place as well, so we'll have to see. So that's the storyline, with Mirage being introduced, and then now Magik has the dark side that's a little more free within her, and how she can be able to suppress it. So let's go ahead and jump into the artwork. I think the artwork here is like so-so. Who's on this? Peralta? It's okay. It's going to be a darker tone, of course, being in Liminal. For most of the book, I'd say over half of it is what it feels like. And not much of it is fighting. It's just more like conversational to a certain extent. And then so here's where they're basically like, Liminal's like, yeah, you know, we're basically the same people. Like, come on, there's no way you can handle this. Here's like the dark side of Magik, and I guess how much of a stranglehold that demon has within her. Here's where she turns to Earth, finds him over in Ecuador, and then Mirage then shows up at the end here. So Magik number 3. Is it the time to jump in? I'd say start at number 1 if you can, and then maybe number 4 is actually going to be a better one than jumping here. Actually, no. I say, now you know the stakes here. I actually do think this will be fine. 1 or here. I think this will be fine. Never mind. Forget what I was saying. You can work on number 3. So I gave it a 3.5, and Lee gave it a 4. Then next we have is Phoenix number 9. So for Phoenix number 9, and this is one of 3 books we have remaining. For this one, I gave it a 3.5. Lee gave it a 3.7. I was like kind of perfectly between 3.5 and 4. So the fact that Lee is there, that makes total and complete sense to me. This one came back out in March of this year. And this book in particular is where Phoenix, she's already broken out of her cocoon that was revealed at the last issue. And now we're at the point now where she wants to go after Adani. So Adani now has half of the Phoenix Force within her. And then, of course, Phoenix, Jean Grey, has the remaining side within her. And she basically realizes, Jean Grey at this point, that Adani is not going to be able to handle this power. And she's going to end up doing whatever Peric has asked her to do, because she has no way of basically her emotional intelligence is gone and the power of the Phoenix is like taking over her. And it's going to overwhelm her, and it's like the fate of the universe is at stake. So she has to go after Adani. And then sure enough, that is what is happening to Adani. She's not controlling her powers. Pericus and his whole enclave, I think they're called the Dark Shadow or something like that, they're basically like, hey, how can we manipulate Adani in order to think that she's in control, but we're actually in control, and it's going to end up leading to a universe that we want made in our image. And Adani effectively falls for the bait and is resurrecting kind of the Dark Shadow realm to even like a more prominent position that it's ever been before. So then you just get basically the fight between Phoenix and of Jean Grey and then Adani. So those two are just basically going back and forth. And then as they're fighting, the universe starts shattering around it. And in particular, Jean Grey, she had Rocket by her side and Nova. She sent them to the side, like literally on a beach vacation, but that all starts like falling and caving in as well. So the fight is basically continuing into the cliffhanger of like what all is going to happen next. So that's, I think, the reason. So it didn't really have a nice, compelling cliffhanger to want me to read on to the next book is a big reason as to why I gave this one a 3.5 rather than the 4. But the artwork here is excellent. The artwork always has been excellent for Phoenix. And so now she's got this new crazy cosmic suit as well, which is pretty dope. It's like this crazy, you know, if it was curly hair, it would be like 80s style curly hair, but it's flames, which is insane as one piece. But then beyond that too, I think there's a piece here that you can see it. Yeah, so like her actual suit and dress, it's like stars imbued into it. It's like ridiculous. So it's here's like another good angle at it as well. So yeah, it's but Jean Grey very quickly just casts Nova and Rocket aside to like this little beach vacation thing. So Donnie talking to Pericus, they're tricking her into doing their bidding, and then here's where Phoenix meets up with Adani, and then the fight basically begins at this point, where those two are just going to go back and forth, duke it out, and then you can see Adani, like the power is just consuming her within, and she's not really able to hold on for much longer. And as they're fighting, all of reality is starting to crack, and then we'll see whether or not reality will be able to hold on, and we'll see who prevails in the end. So that's basically it. So that's Phoenix number 9. Again, I gave it a 3.5. Lee gave it a 3.7. Overall, I'd say Phoenix, really good book. This one just maybe isn't the one to jump into now. I'd say you'd probably want to start with the previous one because it's a nice setup into this fighting that's taking place. But this book here just fell a little bit. I can imagine actually the next one picking up too. As you conclude the fight, we'll just have to see where the book all goes from there. So next up we have is Uncanny X-Men number 12. This one, I gave it a 4, and then Lee gave it a 4 as well.
Nailed it. I know. Thank you. Moving on.
And this book was a really good kind of one-off story of Remy, just learning more about his backstory as Gambit. I'd also say the cover too is pretty sick, if you can see that. Let me go to the actual main, and then I'll just flip to the full cam too so you can see it on the YouTube. But you just have Gambit standing there holding his pole behind his back. Other hand is holding up the card, and you basically have a view of, you know, kind of the French Quarter of New Orleans. But in the puddle that's on the ground in the reflection, you have the inverse of Gambit, but then a whole bunch of folks behind him as well. So it just like, what a cool, striking image that is. And so for the story itself, again, it is just a purely Remy Gambit story of him as a child, picked on as a mutant, of course, because that is just classic. Picked on some kids that particular day. Apparently his father was some sort of gangster, and a whole bunch of, assassin types, people were working for his dad. But none were more feared than this guy called the Vig, and he was clearly some sort of mutant as well. And so he took favor with Gambit because he saw Gambit was a mutant. And so one day in particular, he's getting his ass handed to him by a bunch of kids, but those kids were part of a rival gang, or that, you know, their family was a part of a rival gang. So Gambit knew if like there was any trouble that it actually wouldn't look good on his father, and so he's just gonna have to take it. But the Vig then shows up and it's like, hey, you know, you don't have to take that. I can handle this for you. There's gonna be a perfect time when their family's out of town or your family's out of town, and we'll just take advantage of that. And that's what they decide to do. And it's actually Gambit in particular who goes and beats them up. But when he goes to beat them up, of course, those kids then tell their family about it. So then the adults then show up to Remy and the Vig hanging out like a week or maybe a couple days later. And so then that fighting takes place. But the Vig goes a little too far and he ends up killing them. So when he kills them, he tells Remy, like, you got to get out of town because they're just not going to stop at this point. It's just escalated to the point where they can't help. But for me, taking care of those kids, you owe me now. You owe me 25% literally for the rest of your life. So Gambit's like, shit, well, you know, it is what it is. He helped me out. And first he doesn't realize that he was screwed. But over time and the years of like the Vig actually collecting every single time whenever he wanted to collect 25% of whatever, he realized very clearly that he was taken advantage of. So this book started off with the Vig sending a note, hey, it's time for you to pay up. Then Remy tells us this whole story. And then at the end, we get Gambit facing off against the Vig. And sure enough, the fight's on. Gambit's obviously much older now and an X-Men. So he takes care of the Vig like pretty easily. Doesn't kill him, but it gets to the point where it's like, we clearly know who's in charge now, and I will not be paying you at all moving forward. And then you also find out in the end is that the Vig set the whole thing up in the first place for those kids to attack Remy, so that way it would be that Remy would owe him for the rest of his life. So the Vig is like a terrible person, right? But Remy gets it all squared away, and now he won't be bothering him much anymore. So that's the story. Really nice, really good, all succinct. Don't need to be caught up on anything else that's going on. It's all just takes place in this one issue, so definitely a great one to jump in at Uncanny X-Men number 12. Let's go ahead and show off some of the artwork here as you can check it out. Nothing too crazy on the artwork side of things. You get a little bit of the story here of some of the X-Men kids, you know, just going through their danger room and trying to improve. But majority of this is all about the story here. So that's the Vig, which looks like this crazy reptilian scaled looking dude. Enormous. And it's got like kind of these razor sharp teeth and things like that. And like people just did not F with him. So he looks like an absolute badass. And you see Gambit there as a kid. And then sure enough, Gambit showing up and then taking care of business as only Gambit can. And then pretty sure the Vig won't be bothering him no longer. And so, yeah. And then at the end here is just kind of a small little cliffhanger of like, the mayor's having some issues. There's some mutant things that we have to go and take care of. So we'll find out all about that in the next issue. So, yep, that's Uncanny X-Men number 12. This is a backlog issue. This came out mid-March, March 26th. So, you know, obviously way more current stuff out there. But if you found number 12, definitely easy one to just get into. And you can just read that and then go from there. And then we get to our last book here, which is Local Man. So this is the volume, or the trade, I should say. So I have issue number 6. In here, last episode, I reviewed Gold, which was part of this. Oh, I don't have the trade in here. But this has issue 6 through something. Usually says it on here. Yeah, 6 through 9 plus Gold. And Gold was like kind of a one-off, basically. But issue 6 gets right back to the story itself, which is good. So, I like Local Man. But I don't think it's as good as people were touting it to be, personally. So I gave it a 3.5. But some issues are like really good. Other issues I'm like, not so much. Lee gave it a 4.2. And so I'm finding that this was just an issue that I didn't find that was super great. But I see where everything is going. And I'm like, oh, this has the making of being awesome. But then falls flat. So this issue here, we have Crossjack. He was kicked out of 3rd Gen. He's trying to figure out why all these terrible things are happening in this town. He was kind of an idiot, a braggadocious asshole in his former life. He's got an old ex-girlfriend who is now wrapped up in some big business, big conspiracy thing that's happening. And Crossjack is just getting pulled in all different directions with all this conspiracy stuff that's taking place. So Crossjack goes to a diner, and that's where Igna, his ex, works, owns, and operates. And there is a terrorist that comes in shooting up the place. And Crossjack quickly dispatches him along with the help of the deputy sheriff who helps out as well. And they take out this guy. But he's coming there screaming about Camo Crusader, which is the leader of 3rd Gen, who was just killed. And he thinks it had something to do with this major conspiracy that's going on. We know as readers reading earlier that it was actually Crossjack, but he was just defending himself after we found out that Camo Crusader was kind of going crazy. And he was going crazy with trying to come up with this. It looks, we don't fully know what it is, but it looks to be like some sort of cloning thing that they're doing. Issue 5, you found out that Igna is involved as well, and actually she may have been the one pulling the strings on the Camo Crusader. You find out more that she's not fully pulling the strings, but she's the one that's basically running the operation at a local level. So after all of those events then take place, that's when Crossjack gets called into the police department again. Only for this time, it's not has anything to do with the shooting that took place here or anything in the previously. It was this young girl, 16 years old, found dead. Really smart, top of the class, didn't hang out with the wrong people, so it just seems odd. But what they're trying to investigate is just recently a bunch of hippies have moved in down by the river, and they said sometimes they're known to get super violent, and she was found down by the river. So they assume maybe they had something to do with it. So Crossjack is tasked with investigating. So that is the setup of what he's going to do next. Igna, while she is, I think she's with her kids or something, but she gets a phone call, and this is from the big bosses that are actually have some sort of mission with this little small town, Farmington, Wisconsin, I think it is. And is hey, we just don't want any problems. We want our money to be invested well. You sure you can handle everything that's going on there? She's like, yes, but I want some guarantees. She doesn't want her husband, the chief of police, to be hurt or family or anything. And they're like, hey, as long as we get our return on investment, everything should be totally fine. But they leave it a little ambiguous. It makes you think some people are going to get hurt for sure. And as they're laying it all out, she goes into this barn warehouse that has all these different laboratory pods where you would have floating cadavers and bodies in there, shit like that. And it looks like there's some sort of cloning thing that's happening. We just really have no idea what it is yet. And on top of that, Crossjack's starting to do investigating, but he's got to make sure that he keeps it incognito because he doesn't want Third Gen to find out or any of the other superheroes or that it has anything to do with Crossjack. And he's heading towards the river. And when he does, he sees best way to describe it is a bloater, if you know what that is from The Last of Us, but it's pustule green with all these lesions that looks like it was living in the river for 40 years, right? Just something like that monster coming out of the water. And that's the cliffhanger that we're left off on. So, okay issue. I would have liked more. I can see the next issue being really awesome. So that's where I'm at on Local Man as of right now. So let's go ahead and show off the artwork here. Get this a little further into where we're at. Boom. So this is the start of it here at the store. Crossjack with Igna. Oh yeah, and then she's cheating on her husband too, which I find to be weird because the chief is not dead. But here is the terrorist attack that takes place, and they're able to take out this guy. Boom, from the deputy sheriff, who's able to take him down. But it's kind of crazy because this is a small little local town that there aren't shootings and things like that. This news portion basically catches you up if you haven't read some of the other stuff, because this is the start of the new trade, so I like that piece a lot. That actually makes it a lot easier to jump into issue number 6. But all this stuff came out a very long time ago. This issue number 6, October 18th, 2023. So that's how long ago this has been. But here's where he's showing off the girl of who this was and everything. And then Igna getting that call about these pods and these vats and trying to protect the investment and everything that's happening there. And then Crossjack doing that investigation, heading down towards the river. And then when he heads down towards the river, this is where he sees this gross pustule looking zombie thing that's come out of the river. So we'll see what that's all about. And then at the end here too, you always get some of these comic book things that also happen too. It's a little mini comic. That's stuff that happened back in the day. And I think it's basically Igna trying to a point in her life where she needs to figure out what to do after Crossjack then left her and became a superhero, and now she's got to figure out her whole life. And then it sets it up ready to go into issue number 7. So yep, that is Local Man. Issue number 6, I gave it a 3.5, and then League gave it a 4.2. So with that, as we conclude our reviews, let's just recap everything from the top so you have the full list. So we had the Ultimates number 15. This is Shang-Chi's origin story. Then Green Lantern Corp, issue number 7. The synthetics have to help the organics feel emotion again. Then we have Bug Wars number 6, the finale. Slater was able to save his brother. What is up for him next? We will find out next year. Transformers 23, the big fight between Megatron and Optimus Prime about to take place. Batman Hush 158. Hush has now returned. Miles Morales Spider-Man number 23. This is the issue right after Blood Hunt, and now Vulture has returned. Magik number 3. This is going to be the battle between Magik and the Dark Child demon within her. Phoenix number 9. We get to the main fight between Jean Grey and Adani over the Phoenix Forest for the balance of the universe. Uncanny X-Men number 12. This is Remy or Gambit's fight with the Vig. And then lastly was Local Man number 6. It's Crossjack and Igna trying to figure out, well, Crossjack, what exactly is happening and if Igna is going to be able to hold everything together. Alrighty, now let's go into the picks for next week. So we are locked and loaded with 9 for this week. And sorry for if this sounds a little janky as I'm piecing it together. Of course, the power went out in the middle of recording, which has been my worst nightmare ever. But I actually think it went out at a decent spot, so hopefully it doesn't screw it up too badly here. But anyways, 9 for this week, which is pretty good. We have Absolute Batman number 11, Absolute Flash number 6, Dark Honor number 4, which I actually thought that I dropped this book, but now that I look back into my actual subscription for the store through Shopify, it looks like I am still on it. So, and if I dropped it now, I would get the last 2 books anyway. So I'm like, all right, I guess it is what it is. I'll be getting that one. Exquisite Corpses number 4, definitely looking forward to that one. G.I. Joe number 10, Hyde Street number 8, Imperial number 3, The New Gods number 9, and The Seasons number 7. So no backlogs at all for this week. So out of the 9, I mean, I could do all those and then just one book, and then the Omega just be all backlog items. But I kind of like getting through a number of different books throughout the week before I pick up the current ones, and then I only have to get through 4 or 5, before the week. It actually makes it a little nicer for me personally on the pacing. And at the end of the day, right, this is a hobby. Not making a dime off of this yet, but right now I just got to make it as conducive for my schedule, and then as scalable, and then as repeatable without burning out, and templatized as possible. It really does help out kind of in the long run. So, again, sorry for the audio stuff that happened towards the end there, but hey, power outages is part of the game. I'm actually amazed that this is the very first one that has actually happened where I've had issues like that. Just going through some of the editing, it looks like it's going to be fine, so we'll see how that all goes. So with that, we'll go ahead and close it out. So appreciate you guys for tuning in. Thank you so very much. Everywhere that you can find me, as far as where you find the shows, of course, on Spotify and Apple Podcast. Obviously, the video version is going to be on the YouTube, but all the other social media channels, those are all listed down in the description. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, feel free to leave a comment. Feel free to use that email. I know I've had a couple people use it in the past before, so feel free to send those in. If there are things that you'd like to see about the show, things you don't like about the show, or whatever case it may be. Happy to pivot and make those adjustments for you guys. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and close it out. Thanks again for tuning in, and I will see you guys in the next one.
This has been a DMW production. Thanks for stopping by.